Hey, welcome back to Appalachian Expose. I'm really excited this week because I got the man sitting next to me here, right? Sabu needs no introduction, obviously. Honestly, I think one of the most important ingredients that got ECW to become what it became and the legend that the fans still chant about. So I'm excited for this interview because we've known each other for 30, 35 years, but we've never really had like a sit-down discussion like this. And I always tell the fans, the things, if you and I are driving in a car to a show today for the first time, within an hour what comes up, hey, where'd you train? Who broke you in? That kind of stuff, right? So that's what I like to do here on the show. Is
that's how you break the ice, is who broke you in.
Yeah, exactly. And then that starts an 8-hour conversation, right? Yeah. So do the same thing here. So I mean, obviously, I know that the Sheik, your uncle, the original Sheik, the Sheik that drew shit tons of money in wrestling. We were talking the other day at an event, and we talked about how. People will come to us, the fans will come to us and say, hey, Sabu, who would be on the wrestling Mount Rushmore with you? Or ask me that kind of question. And in my head, like, I don't know about you, but I don't see myself on a Mount Rushmore.
Not really. Well, we don't toot our own horns like that.
Right.
But when other people put us up there, they did it. I didn't do it. Yeah. I never put myself up there.
Right. And because I'm sure you're the same as me, like, to me, guys like the Sheik or Danucci or
San
Martino.
But I looked up to the guys I work with.
Yeah, those are the guys we learned from, right? It's that would be my Mount Rushmore. But so obviously, professional wrestling is a big thing in your family because of your uncle. I mean, was your family always close, tight? Like, was your uncle always around or being on the road all the time?
Yeah, he was on the road all the time, but he kayfabed us. He didn't smarten us up. We only would go out there on Sundays afternoons to have dinner with him. And he went to Cobo Hall that night or somewhere in Detroit that night.
Yeah.
And the baby faces and heels would sometimes be there in separate rooms eating dinner. And I go, ain't that Tony Marino? He just fought Sheik last night. And he's in the same house.
Yeah.
He's got a bandit on his head.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe they're in the same house. And anyways, he kayfabed us. I didn't grow up in the business. I grew up watching it. He didn't clue me in. He didn't clue nobody in.
Did your family, did they try to keep you away from wrestling and say, well, don't watch that, we'll turn this on the TV?
No. We're proud of them.
Yeah, of course. Were you, after you saw your uncle wrestling in those type of matches, was there something inside that you were afraid of? Not afraid of him, but like, you see him on TV doing,
bite off more than I can chew.
Yeah, right, yeah. Was there a fear or a different kind of respect there because?
Yeah. See, when I seen him stabbing a guy with a foreign object, I didn't consider that cheating. I considered him even in the odds.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, because
my uncle's a big guy, but not as big as most of his opponents.
Right.
So he had to even the odds with whatever he had.
I mean, when you first say that, it amazes me that he never smartened you or the family up. But then I beckon back like Dominic and Bruno and those guys, that whole generation, they kayfabe to the ultimate degree.
I was surprised. My aunt acted like she didn't know what was going on, but she did.
Oh,
but she kayfabed me.
Yeah. Well, I've told this story about me and Mick because Mick Foley and I broke in together with Dominic. We were on a show in Warren, Ohio. Again, young greenhorns, right? We're on the first match.
Warren, Ohio. That's where I wrestled Klinsky.
Crusher Golbansky. Yeah, another of Dominic's students, big guy. We were standing inside the doorway before going on. We were on first, of course, and we're talking about match, and somebody yells kayfabe. I know it sounds like I'm making a joke, but I honestly thought somebody was yelling for a woman named Kayfabe, right? Because Dominic never told us that. And a couple minutes later, said, Kayfabe, goddammit. And boy, somebody's pretty pissed with this K woman, right? And Mick and I keep talking. Well, Dominic comes over because Bruno and the Samoans and the Valiants and David, there were a bunch of the boys in the dressing room, and they all knew we were his students. He comes over with those big Italian paws and smacks both of us and grabs us by the ear and pulls us into the shower. He's pissed, right? And he goes, it's something like, you think you're big a superstar, you don't need a kayfabe. I said, Dominic, I don't know who this kayfabe woman is. And he went to smack me again. I said, why do you keep hitting me? And he goes, you don't know what kayfabe means? And he looked at Mick, and me and Mick went like,
I don't know either.
And he must have realized at that moment, he never taught us, and he went, means get the fuck away from your opponent. And he walked back out, right? And that's how we honestly met. And that's how those guys
would protect. Check this out. Whenever I come into the dressing room, kayfabe. And then finally, Muddy Dominic, he goes, you know what kayfabe means? I go, it means I'm a sissy. They call me like a sissy.
Right. So at what age did you start training? Like when did you
19.
decide?
I wrestled amateur for 5 years,
Yeah.
junior high and high school, and I started training when I was 19.
Now, when you were doing the amateur wrestling, I had younger experience. I was in my, singles up to 12 years old. But when you were amateur wrestling, was there ever a time that you thought to yourself, can you incorporate some of the stuff your uncle does?
Yeah, I thought, okay, wrestling looks fake except for the Sheik. He looks like he's real.
Yeah.
He means business. Everybody else kind of looks fake. So I'm going to change the business and make the other matches look real too. By stabbing them or whatever.
Right,
I was dreaming.
Sure, no, that's where
I wanted to improve the
reality
business
comes.
to my way,
Yeah.
not really realizing that we did do that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. It's so early on for me when I first started training, I was a senior in high school, and I met Dominic without boring the fans again when I was in 8th grade because we had that. I'm guessing the world's first backyard wrestling show. My friends and I.
Oh,
Dominic had come and.
You serious?
Yeah, and we became. I'll tell you that after we're off the air because I've told these guys a ton. But Dominic came, and we were enthralled. Like,
He came to a backyard show?
yeah, well, because it was for muscular dystrophy.
Oh,
And
okay.
the woman who ran the Muscular Dystrophy Association put us in contact. Well, of course, I became like a dingleberry, right? Like, yeah, Dominic. So he'd ask me to go to shows and stuff with him, and I was just loved being with him. And when I was a senior in high school, I asked him to train me, not because I wanted to be a pro wrestler, but because I knew when I went to college, I was not going to be doing sports. My thought was I'm going to go to college, give it my best try, and I'm going to fail out because nobody in my family had ever been. So I thought I wanted to stay active in some way, like from high school sports, and I thought, well, this would be a good way to do it. And he said, I'll do it on one condition, that you go to college. Well, I already knew I was going to college. Just last year, knowing Dominic for 40 plus years, close to 50 years, he said to me back then, about going to college. We were sitting at his house last summer, and he pointed down from this porch, and he said, right down there, like he's got a long driveway. My mailbox is where your mom and dad came to ask me not to train you. Like,
Oh,
you didn't go
really?
to college. And it shocked me because my mom and dad got along, but they were divorced, and I never saw them do anything in my life, ever do anything together. So that they both came there together, that must have been pretty important to them. Did your uncle have any consternation of you getting into the business?
See, I'm the third cousin to be in the business. My cousin Eddie, the Sheik's son, my cousin Butch was a referee, and my cousin Mike Farhat was a wrestler. But my cousin Butch killed his wife, and he's in prison.
Oh my God.
My cousin Mike got killed by his wife, who was a rat.
Holy.
And I'm still in the business.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm the fourth cousin. My cousin Eddie just quit.
Oh, yeah. And so.
My mom didn't want me to do it, but she knew that's what I was going to do.
Yeah. I'm sure at a young age she could see you gravitating to it.
She actually, we were watching Georgia Championship Wrestling, and everybody cut a promo. Me and my mom was watching it. She never watched wrestling, but she watched it with me that day. And everybody cut a promo kind of all the same, yelling and screaming,
Yeah.
She goes, promise me when you do that, you're not going to do that. I said, Mom, I'll never say a word.
Yeah.
I was like 14 at the time.
Yeah, fantastic. So now you start training. Did the Sheik have like a formal school, or did he just take?
No. He goes. The whole story is okay. I graduated high school. I took a summer off. Then I got shot in my face when I was 19.
Let's go there. How the hell did that happen?
I was at a party at my friend's house, and these guys across the street came across and wanted to party with us, and we said no. But then eventually we said, if you bring your own drinks, you can come. And then out of the corner of my eye, I seen this guy bend down. It looked like he pulled out of his socks 2 guns and shoot my friend in the stomach and take off running and shot one more time. But one gun was a starter pistol, one gun was a 32, a real gun. But he shot my friend in the stomach with the blank gun, and then shot him, missed him, and hit the other guy behind him in the hip and took off running. And he ran right by me. I ran after him, picked him up, threw him down, bam! He pushed his gun into my face and shot me right in the face.
Oh.
And knocked the shit out of me for a little while. But when I got out of the hospital, my mom told my uncle that's what I wanted to do when I got out.
Right.
And so he called me 4 days after I got out of the hospital and said, come out and train. And I did.
How? All these years we've known each other. How have I not heard this story?
You never heard that?
No, I'd never. That's the first I've heard it.
I got the gun. I had powder burns on my face because the gun was so close, and it hit my teeth and shattered, and hit the back of my throat and my nasal cavity,
My God.
and knocked my teeth out.
Jesus. Wow, that's incredible. So you and Perry, I guess, are the two two ECW alumni. But so back to Sheik now. So Sheik, how did the training go with Sheik?
I came to his house, and he lives in this big giant house. I thought I was in, all right, man, I'm on the easy street. I'm gonna be a wrestler and living in a mansion. He made me work for every fucking thing.
Well,
He goes, now today, this is my second day in there. First day I didn't do anything, just hung around with him, watched him and stuff. And the next day he goes, okay, it's time to go to camp. I go, what do you mean? He goes, go up to the barn, grab the ring, bring it down here. I go, okay. And my cousin Tom, he showed me how to do it. He goes, this is how you do it. Boom, boom, boom. Now see you later. He never helped me again. My uncle said if I had to have help to set the ring up, I wasn't ready to get in the ring. And I set the ring up for 7 months. Put it up in the morning, tore it down at night for 7 months before he let me train in it.
And how often did you guys train?
About 4 times a week. When we had shows, we trained every day before the show.
Yeah.
But I didn't wrestle in those shows. I refereed.
Right.
But 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow. So,
And mostly him just saying, move this way, move that way. I'd be on it with nobody.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Wow, incredible. Because similar, but luckily for me, I guess, Dominic, his school started in his barn, I think November of '82, and the wood they updated it now, but back then the wood was, there were some boards that far apart. So snow and wind is blowing through, and it's, you take a bump in the ice cold like that, and just learning to bump, right? It was painful. And then he rented a building downtown Freedom, Pennsylvania, an old school, and put it up in the gym. So the ring stayed up the whole time, but the ropes loosened and everything. So I'd have to go there early to tighten and clean it out, sweep the mat and all that kind of stuff. But
Well, my uncle's a firm believer on you got to pay your dues to get into the ring. Not pay your money, pay your dues.
Right.
Bust your ass.
And so I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you on camera anyway. We see today and for the last 20, 25, 30 years, whatever, that somebody comes and pays their money, right, and buys some boots and tights, and suddenly they're a wrestler.
And a belt.
And a belt, right? And you start, how long before you actually step foot in the ring with another opponent and actually grappling?
A year and a half.
A year and a half. So Dominic kept us in that big gymnasium, so he had the ring sitting like literally right here, and an amateur mat right here. And for 6 months, everything was on the mat, chaining and everything on the mat. We weren't, as kids, we were like, please let us get in the ring and jump off the ropes, right? Well, no, we had to do all this stuff first. And Dominic had such an extensive amateur background that you couldn't hang with him, right? He knew all the tricks. He'd throw a knee into your shin or whatever, into your calf, and flatten out, and he'd roll you over. He used to do this trick where he would say, so we were in Rome, and there,
Georgia?
No, Rome, Italy. And
Italy.
yes,
Okay.
and he had gone over, ran a show, he and his family in the Olympic Auditorium over there, Inoki on the show. And after the show, they're having the receiving line, right? Because Dominic's pretty well, famous there. And this big guy, I mean huge, like 6'9", 10", big, comes through, and they're talking Italian. I don't know a thing they're saying. Dominic looks at me and tells me to move the tables and chairs out of the way. And then I move him out of the way.
Yeah, I know where it's going.
And he goes down in referee position, right? And this big boy takes his coat off and gets down. And I knew right as soon as I saw Dominic getting referees, he would tell you, if you can turn me over, I'll train you for free. Right?
Really?
You couldn't turn him over with a tow truck, right? And this big boy fought for 20 minutes till he came up, and his tongue was a bow tie, right, hanging, sweating. And Dominic.
See, that's what people, they misconstrued age with lack of wisdom.
Right.
Age comes wisdom. You learn how to use things without having to use your full strength.
Correct, yeah. And Dominic's had a technique, yes. And he was probably well into his 50s at that point. But back to you and Sheik, because I'm such a fan, even though I didn't see him a lot, because I was in Pittsburgh, and then we didn't have cable and everything. But I was in the magazines always reading about Sheik. You see him, the spike and everything, and the
fire.
And and the fire, and you're glued to it, right? And then suddenly when cable comes in, and I can start seeing him here and there, I was ubiquitously aware of your uncle long before I was aware of your uncle's career, right? So you start training with me like a year and a half before you can even get into the ring. How long from that first day where you and Sheik sat around and then setting the ring up the next day, how long before you actually had your first match?
A year and a half.
So a year and a half.
7 months was setting the ring up and tearing it down. Mm-hmm. The next whole year was training, and then I had the first match.
Yeah. So you had, even though you were greenhorn still, you had a lot of experience.
Yeah. I was ready. A lot of guys are not ready for their first match or ready for a certain match.
Right.
Like a lot of guys will go to Japan and they're not ready for it and they never bring it back.
Yeah.
I was ready for my first match. When I went to Japan, I was ready to be in Japan, and when I went to ECW, I was ready to be there.
How long after like you start breaking into the business did the Japanese tours start coming up?
7 years.
So 7 years.
Yes.
Well, and let me ask you, because this is again the thing that Steve Austin and I talked about on his podcast. how long in that first 7 years? Like, when did you start getting comfortable in the ring?
The first day in Japan, when my uncle says, "Do that shit," like what you think when I do that shit, what you do when you think I'm not watching you.
Yeah, because like I always try to tell the fans and try to explain to it, we all know how to do the moves, right? It's easy once you learn to body slam or suplex or hip toss somebody. The question is, do you know when to do it, not to do it?
That's the trick.
And when something...
And not everybody can do those.
No, yeah, right. But it also, in almost every match, at least in my experience, something goes wrong, right? And so you got to fix it. And to me, it was about, Steve agreed, both of us for about 7 years, that when something would go wrong at 7 years, we certainly hadn't mastered it. But at least then, if something goes wrong, we didn't panic.
Fixed it.
Yeah, we could fix it, right? So it
See,
was the same
when
thing.
when I broke in, a good worker was judged on how good he could call it on his feet.
Yeah.
Not how good he could remember a script.
Right, exactly, yeah. And you see with the kids today, like when I'm working with young, it's rare now because we're a little bit we're not quite as sturdy as we used to be, right? It's so I'm leery of getting with too young of kids, but there's this pageantry or this ceremony that goes 4 or 5 hours before the match. The kid will come over and introduce himself to you, right? And then you say, "Oh, we'll talk," and he leaves. And then as they get closer and closer to the match, you can see the kid starts gravitating closer and closer and getting nervous. Yeah, and I'll keep him at arm's length and then say, "Well, just listen to me out there. We're gonna have fun." And they're panic stricken. And then we go to the ring and we have fun and come back and he goes, "Man, that was easy."
Yeah.
Right? That's what it's supposed to be.
See, Malcolm taught me the better they are, the easier they are.
Yes. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Amen. Absolutely.
You can tell how good a guy is, how easy he is.
Right.
If it's a pulling teeth, he's not that good. It may look good, but might not be that good.
Right, exactly. So now with the Sheik, once you had broken in, like we're now at 7 years into your career and you're going to Japan and making a name for yourself. With the Sheik, because he was quite prodigious in Japan, was he on the tours with you?
Yes.
Okay.
And how it actually was Onita called my uncle to be in a tag team tournament. And he goes, "You can bring anybody." He goes, "I'll bring my nephew." They go, "You can bring anybody. He's just going to do the job anyways."
Good. Now, I think I know the answer to this, but when you guys would come back from the ring, would you get an earful?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did this right, this wrong?
Early on, when I got back from the ring, everybody's applauding me and clapping me. He goes, "Sit down. Don't listen to that shit." He goes, "You did that wrong. You
Yes,
did this
sir.
wrong. You didn't do that right." I go, "Yeah, but it don't matter what they said. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what I said."
Amen. And see, for the young wrestlers out there that don't understand when they see all the stuff, the backflips and stuff they're seeing today, this is the stuff Sheik would have reamed his ass out afterwards.
Sure.
Dominic would have reamed my ass out if we had gone out there and just gone rogue.
Well,
right?
I didn't do a backflip for my first 7 years. I didn't do a backflip.
Yeah.
And I didn't even do one in the match until I went to Japan.
Right.
I only did it in practice on a mattress when I thought my uncle wasn't watching me.
So now you're in Japan, and this is where I become aware of you, right? As the Sabu the wrestler, because again with the magazines, as a young guy coming into the business, I'm just sucking up as much information as I can, and and the sheets at that time, but the magazines also were putting you over like really big, right? Is this kid's going to be a big star? There's all these things coming down the road. So when you came to ECW, I was aware of the name. We'd only met, I think, we spoke before the interview briefly at your uncle's show, but it wasn't really meeting. It was just like, "Hey, how you doing?" kind of thing. And now you come to ECW, and it took me a while when in ECW, like brain fart, I guess, but it took me a while to realize that this is the Sabu that I'm reading about in Japan. Was there ever a conversation, and I'm probably going to jump back a little because I want to get to the ECW stuff quick. When Paul brought you in, was there a conversation of him laying any kind of expectation out to you, or
No, the thing, Paul didn't call me in for ECW. Todd Gordon, I called Todd Gordon, he brought me in. I was talking to Paul Lee a few weeks before that because he wanted to bring me in for this WWN project he had going. It was going to start to go.
Right.
But he goes, "In the meantime, why don't you come in for ECW?" I didn't know what it was. And then Dennis Corluzzo told me about Todd Gordon, told me to call him. And I did, and Todd brought me in. And then Paul Lee goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I don't know, what are you doing here?" It was Paul Lee's first day and my first day happened to be in the same spot.
Yeah, well, that would have been then right after Eddie had powdered.
Yes.
We were at a production meeting, and Doug Gilbert, me, Paul, Eddie, several other people on the table. I can't remember all the specific names. I think Bob Ortiz, Todd, and Todd wasn't there at the beginning of the meeting. Eddie starts the meeting. This is like the third show we're having, And Todd walks in and whispers in his ear, and Eddie gets up and walks outside with him. And they're gone for about 45, 50 minutes. Todd comes back in and says, Eddie decided to quit. Paul will be the new booker. And, excuse me, now I had a strong loyalty to Eddie because he'd given him a break in UWF. So I was a little bit shaken by that because, I was real loyal to Eddie. But then Paul pulled me aside and gave me the idea for the franchise character. And
Oh, he did? I thought that was all you.
Yeah, no. Eddie had given me this sort of generic moniker, the fabulous one. Well, what's a fabulous one? And then that was the year the NFL started naming a player, franchise player, and that was all. The only direction he gave me was you're the captain of the football team who steals everybody's girlfriend and does them, right? He's a little more. He said fuck them. So I keep on forgetting. You gotta be careful what genre we're on here.
Those are his words.
Yes, those are his words. Right, get heat on him. So I see them bringing out. First of all, I wasn't a fan of the gurney and all that kind of stuff because to me wrestling had to get back to real, right? And that
seemed too far fetched.
Yeah, it was too far fetched, right? And then when I saw you perform in the ring, I told you the other night in the car, and this is gospel truth on my mother and father's grave. We had a monitor and a table set up in the back, and the boys would all sit around and watch. And I see you pull a chair out, opponent's down, open the chair. What the hell's he doing? And then you start running away from the chair. I'm thinking, where's he going? And I'm watching and jump on the chair. And then I'm over top of the guy on the rope. And then back over the chair. And I exploded out of the chair. I was like, fuck, that's awesome. Great. Incredible shit. And that was where I realized that in watching your match that night, that ECW was going to be something a little bit different, right? So, with Paul's, homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, Sabu, how much direction did Paul give you, if any? Because again, with me, it was very
almost
general.
nothing. He just said, "I'm gonna cut a promo for you, and you do what you want."
Yeah.
That was pretty much what it was. He did the talking, and I did the wrestling.
Now, prior to that, especially from Japan, right? They give these 10, 15-minute finishes.
No, FMW was different. One move finish: DDT, body slam,
Nice.
superplex, and before that, you just fill it in, and it's time to go home. You hit with the one move.
Fantastic, yeah. When I went over there with All Japan, Baba's company,
All Japan.
All Japan, right? So I was getting confused. And Johnny was good at this. Johnny Ace, we went over as the dudes the first time. He was great at remembering those 10, 12, 15-minute finishes. Right?
All Japan was different. Yeah, they had the long finishes.
Yes, and so I would just sort of follow along with him, and it was uncomfortable. But when ECW, for me, suddenly, the first night we have Paul's booker, and he hands me the mic, and he wants me to do a 5-minute promo, which is a long promo, and I hadn't yet really sliced my teeth as a heel yet, and I said, well, what do you want me to say? My music's playing, I gotta go to the ring. So what do you want me to say? He went, whatever you want.
Pick it up.
Okay, so a little bit scary, right? But then you get in there, and then that, to me, that's where the franchise character started to coalesce, right? Because
that's how I consider a good worker is.
Yeah.
A guy who can come up with it on his feet.
Right.
Not even remember a script.
Now, with you going to the ring, I don't know if Paul had told you this, there was, early on in ECW, he wanted you to come out and beat me, right, for the belt.
So.
And he said, we can, one of two ways. Do a 45, 50-minute classic or do it quick. I said, do it quick. Because you were still coming up, right, and it was so explosive in the ring. I said, now, down the road, if he could beat me in 2-3 minutes like that, the fans know he can beat me, right? So now we have a built-in thing. And you did something that night in the match, and I don't know if you remember, probably do. You set a table up facing hard cam outside the ring against the railing. And it was pretty steep. And you told me to move. And you went up on the rope and came
Like
up.
hitting the wall, right?
Oh, yeah. It was, I couldn't say you were going to break the table at that angle and not come down on your neck or something, right? And yet you did it, and did it safely, right? And that was the big thing. Every time, I don't know about, well, Stooges, to the fans here, every time I work with Sabu, you see all these incredible moves, right? The Arabian face buster and the triple jump moonsault and all these crazy dives and everything. Everything was like this, right? There was never a tater that came all the way, except every third punch from you. Sorry for the time. But yeah, everything else perfectly safe. So laying on a table and you see a 230-pound guy coming at you off the top rope, it's a little intimidating, but never
Until
once.
I land, and then you go, wow.
Yeah, it's simple.
Got to work. Now I'm not trying to toot my own horn.
No, absolutely.
when you can do that, then you got it. If you're hurting the guy, then
Yeah.
you don't have it.
Right,
You're
and
not
the
doing
guy
it.
doesn't want to work with you next time. Right,
Yeah.
I don't want to walk out with my nose broken or teeth knocked out. So, like, there was that early point in ECW where, like, we were still finding our way, right? So, you know, it wasn't usually get on the microphone and cuss. It wasn't ever seen in wrestling breaking the tables and fighting into the audience and the barbed wire and everything. How far into ECW in your run, like, did you start to realize, okay, like, we're getting these pieces, this building is being built?
About like the third or fourth time I come in, when each crowd, every time we come in, it got bigger each month, bigger each month.
Yeah.
You know, like I think it's like 200 the first time and 400 the next time, and probably double that. You know, that was like fun watching it build like that.
Right.
You know, because I go, man, we got something.
Yeah, and the pride of the fact that we're building it.
Building
Right,
it.
it's
Not already built and we're taking over.
Right.
We started it.
Right. Early on, I'm not sure if you were aware of this, because Paul would keep you kayfabed away from the audience, but we would go out the first, second, maybe third shows. Early in the afternoon, we'd be outside on the street handing out free
Like at
tickets.
Boardwalk in New Jersey and
Yes,
stuff.
yeah. Free beer, free hot dogs, that kind of thing. And remember the rope we had
Yeah.
around the ring, and then we finally got the bike racks. But
Yeah. The guardrails.
yes, like we had all those key pieces in place, or started getting them in place. And then to me, like the point where it really exploded over the top, in my head anyway, was when Conan came in with Ray and Juventus and Psychosis and those guys. Because now, again, back in my career with Bill Watts, at Thanksgiving dinner, nobody wants just a big pile of turkey. You want a little bit of everything, right? So we had the homicidal, suicidal maniac, and we had the big mouth jackass, and we had the luchadors, and we had tag teams, and we had the Kevin Sullivans and
Two
Terry
tag
Funks.
teams, the skinny tag teams.
Yes, yeah, and we had all those pieces together. Now, my biggest fear from that point moving forward was getting cherry picked by WCW or WWF, or guys going, well, you know, the houses are growing, we need more money. You know, there were a lot of things that go that the fans may not realize how expensive it is to run a promotion. It's exorbitantly expensive. Did you ever have a written contract with Paul?
Yes, but it was pretty bogus. Yeah. And I signed it at 4 o'clock in the morning, all summed up on purpose, so I didn't get hold up in court.
Yeah.
But I never got, Paul, when I quit ECW, or he fired me, whatever way you want to put it,
Yeah.
I go, well, I'm going to sue you for, you know, I'm going to fight this contract. He goes, you'll never get me in court. You'll go broke before you get me in court. And he was right. I went broke before I got him in court. You know, he's smarter than me.
Yeah.
You know, I give credit where credit's due. He is smarter than me. What can I say? But he was also richer than me at the time. I needed, you know, it was okay to take care of his family, but not okay to take care of mine.
Right, yeah. And we see it a lot in the industry, right? The one thing I've always said about ECW was, like I said, we'll jump back and forth on this, but the one thing that nobody in that original crew of ECW deserved was to get screwed.
No.
Because you had broken your body there, I had broken my body there, and all the guys. Like I've always said it, and it's the truest statement you can make. What was different about ECW was there was nobody lazy. Everybody that went to that ring busted their ass. Everybody,
Even if they weren't that skilled, they tried.
oh yeah, absolutely. And to me, that kind of loyalty, like we always hear these phrases, we drank Paul's Kool-Aid or whatever. For me, Paul's Kool-Aid was that he paid me when I was off, hurt. No other company had ever done that. And he still had me on TV and doing other things. That was where my loyalty to Paul was stemmed, right? That if I was off, I could still feed my family. So I want to jump forward a little bit, and like I said, we'll probably hopscotch back and forth, but the angle to Taz, I've often been quoted as saying, that is the quintessential how to build an angle, right? The 12, 14 months, the fans waiting to see you two butt heads. And you told me what the other day?
That wasn't the angle. The angle, Paz was mad at me, kept calling me out, and Paulie was like, go do something. I wouldn't do it. I ignored him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a predetermined plan to ignore him. It was a last minute thing. Fuck him.
Yeah. So you had gone to Japan with Paul's understanding, right?
New Japan said, boom, 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 can you come back April 12th? I said, yeah, not thinking I was booked April 12th in ECW. So I told Paul a week ahead of time, I can't make it, I'm going to be in Japan. He goes, you have to make it. I said, no, I can't, they're going to pay me 6 times as much as you're paying me. I have to take this.
Sure.
You know, I'm not rich and I never had a break yet.
Right,
ECW wasn't a break yet.
Yeah, we're
you know,
still
it was no money.
button, yeah.
It was, you know, we loved it. There was no money. And I said, I needed a break. And he goes, no, you're booked on the show. I said, there's 5 other guys in the match. Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Taz, and the Pitbulls, I think, or something. It was a big, 2. And so there's 5 other guys could cover for me. He goes, no, you got to make it. So I called Taz and say, hey, what do you think? He goes, you better take the money, brother. And I called Dean. Dean goes, what do I care? And then I go, and I tell Paul, I go, you know, I'm going to go to Japan. He goes, no, you can't go. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you I'm not going, but I'm going. You know, whatever it takes to get you off the phone, I'm going. Right. There's no way you can talk me out of it. So there's no way he was. But then I also thought, okay, the match is April 12th in Japan, and it's April 12th in the States, in Philadelphia. And April 12th in Japan, I could still fly back and be here by April 12th in the States, but I didn't make it. But I thought I could.
Yeah.
And I honestly didn't make it, but then I also thought those guys would cover for me.
Yeah.
Not motherfucker.
Well, and again, that is the classic lesson of wrestling booking, right? Is you make chicken salad from chicken shit, because most times it's curveballs.
Of course, you mix things what you got, and if somebody's out there, you cover for them.
Right. And the build-up, though, to that, first of all, that match, that angle, is what got ECW finally the pay-per-view.
The Taz angle.
Yeah, you and Taz.
Yeah.
And
because I didn't no-show the Taz angle. I no-showed the 6-man tag, whatever.
Right. Yeah, well,
Three-way dance
year
tag.
14 months before. But I remember going. I'm guessing you're like me. I can't watch a monitor. Like I can watch it, but it's sterile to me. I can't get the feel. So I like to watch the live action to get the feel from the audience. And I was up in the crow. It was the crow. I was getting
Eagle's Nest.
Eagle's Nest. Okay, so I'm up in the Eagle's Nest behind the camera watching. And when you guys go to center ring face to face, the only time I had ever felt that kind of energy in a building was when Hulkamania was at its height. And I was up there doing jobs, and I'd get cleaned up and run up to the upper decks.
Right.
Just to be there to feel, you'd feel static
yeah.
on your arms, right, your arm hairs. And you two were there face to face in that long, just stare off. And you could just feel the building starting to percolate, right? There was just like the energy coming up. And there's so many of these experiences in ECW because, again, we were this tiny company that didn't have $1 billion corporation.
Like I said, you know, the angle wasn't me denying the rest of them. I was denying the rest of them, really. But then after I did, I was glad I did.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm glad I was talking to it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things in the wrestling business in our careers like that, right?
Yeah.
This is gonna be shits, and you end up
doing
doing
something incredible.
doing well. So we get to the pay-per-view, and like to me, understanding. I understand the business side of things pretty well, and that how much it costs to get that satellite truck and the satellite uplink and the fans and advertising and everything else. This is an expensive endeavor. And at that point, though, we start going forward. There was still a point after that we were still making money, but suddenly we're filling up 5,000 seat venues. We're on pay-per-view. We're turning people away, thousands of people away, and the checks start bouncing. Right? And it just seemed like something's wrong.
Well, see, yeah, I was disappointed the checks bounced, but I didn't point the fingers at nobody. I figured if Paul had it, he would have paid us. Yeah. So I figured, since he couldn't pay me, let me go away, make some money, and I'll come back, maybe hopefully a bigger name and a boatload of money. But he got mad and a motherfucker me. Now, I don't blame him for doing it, but I just wish he wouldn't have.
Yeah. Well, and again, like growing up in a well-to-do household, you and I didn't, right? And
no,
so,
my uncle was rich. I wasn't.
Right.
My mother, we lived in Lansing. He lived in Williamston in a mansion. We visited him. We didn't live with him.
Right.
Now, I lived with him for a year and a half. I trained with him.
Right.
You know, that wasn't royalty. That was eating dirt.
Yeah, but the reality of it is that while you're in ECW and getting these checks that aren't making it, you still have rent or mortgage next month. You still have a car payment to make. You still have groceries to buy.
I had a motorhome.
$100,000
motorhome.
Yeah. So and I always tell the fans because I remember the heat that you took when you left from the fan base, and when I had left to go to WWF and then came back and left to go to WCW, there was a huge. For me, it was, why didn't I go to WWE? Because the franchise character was more conducive to there. Well, the reality was, Bischoff had offered me about 10 times more money. And I let them try to match it, and they would inch up a little bit, and I'd just go here. Again, it wasn't at that point about the fame or the wrestling to me. It was now I got to make money to live the rest of my life.
They offered, they go, Bischoff said it's going to be easy for you. One pay-per-view a month and one Monday a month. I go, how much am I going to make? He goes, what you wanted. I go, what did I want? He goes, 500 a match. Because Kevin called me and said, how much will it cost to do our first Nitro? I said, well, I'm booked. I can't do it. He goes, how much does it cost to do our second Nitro? I said, just put me over. And he goes, well, we got to give you something. I said, just give me 500 and we'll talk. He goes, okay. So they thought all I wanted was $500, $1,000 a month, and not wrestle anywhere else. And they weren't budgeted. I couldn't even talk to Bischoff. He said, sign it or give it back.
Yeah.
So I gave it back.
Yeah, and then like when you hear this, we now have the spans of time, right, to look backward, and you see all these people making boatloads of money in WCW.
And I was hoping to make a few bucks before they went under, and then go back to ECW a little more comfortable.
Right, yeah. It's for me, luckily because of the heat with Flair that Bischoff wanted to bring, they did give me a really good offer, and I've always been forever thankful for it. Again, me leaving in '95 to go to WWE or F then, and WCW 99, 2000, whatever it was, none of those would have happened if ECW was paying me and still growing and taking advantage.
Believe me, I didn't want to leave. No. I was king of the shit there. Yeah. Who would want to leave that? Yeah. I mean, I could almost do no wrong. Almost, I felt that way. Yeah. And, I wasn't that conceited, but I felt pretty good. We were jamming.
Well, hey, what's the old saying? It's not conceited, you can do it. Right, and you had done it for years there, and again, one of the integral ingredients.
Well, a lot of people they don't see it. They only see me when I was Sabu. 5 years into the first 5 years, I was Terry Nobody, where I was just learning how to mat wrestle.
Right,
and I wasn't allowed to go outside the ring. I wasn't even allowed to go to the top rope for the first 5 years.
Right, but you had said earlier in this interview, or right prior to starting, I forget, but where you said that you wanted to change the business for the better and make all those other matches look real, and you clearly did that, right? I mean, that was a factor of what the Sabu, the character, had brought into the ring and into the business. Okay. And how many people have you seen try to emulate that since, right? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So you have that. I want to back up a little bit in ECW because I know the fans are interested in it. When we're wrestling in these small buildings, the Jim Thorpes and the Armory in New Jersey and Plymouth meeting, great houses, great shows, but they were very small venues, out of the way venues.
What I heard was Todd made it a weekend, and he'd lose money on Fridays and make money on Saturday, just to give the boys another payday.
Yeah. Todd really was the resilience and the money behind it early on. But even a guy like he's wealthy, but he's not promotion nationwide, worldwide.
Right. That's where someone asked me today, was he a mark like Joe Goodhart? No, because he's ended up selling. He could have still been riding, Todd Gordon, the leader of ECW, but he sold it all, and because he wanted to get his money back.
And move it to the next level. But in those buildings, for me, my memory of them is that they were great shows. We always got paid on them. They weren't very far from Philly, usually hour and a half. But it was hard for me to see then, with those 150 people in Jim Thorpe, 200-300 in Plymouth meeting. It was hard for me to see how that was going to get us to this, and then on to pay-per-view later. Again, we were rolling along and Todd was funding it, but how does that translate over to the next thing, right? And then
you're not making enough money to support that house.
Yeah, exactly. Keep building it, right? We had the ECW ring every 3 weeks that brought a boatload of money in, 3.5 weeks. But these clearly are not making money, and probably losing a good chunk of money. But again, I give in my head, I've always given the credit to the angle with Taz, right? There was a lot of interest prior to that for different things, and Paul wanted to stay true to the vision that he had for ECW, and he told me at one point, multiple times early on, that he wanted this promotion to look like the show Cops, where the cars chasing the perp, and they get out and run, the cameras bouncing, a sense of urgency.
Yeah,
right?
It was like that with Public Enemy's promos and stuff.
Yes,
your promos.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had gotten offers. I believe it was Showtime that wanted us to go to pay-per-view not long before, maybe 6-8 months before Barely Legal, but they wanted like an 8-10 camera shoot, pyro, and the whole thing. And Paul said no. I don't know if I was in that place running a promotion that I'd be able to turn down that money from a giant like Showtime. it takes pretty brass balls to say, no, we're going to turn that down and wait.
But then he didn't turn it down for long because we ended up going to TNN and all the fancy lighting and the fake back entranceway and all that, fake brick walls. I thought that we went downhill from there.
Yeah.
When it was grainy television, you couldn't see very good. It looked like it was on a bad station. That was hardcore wrestling to me. Seeing Sandman in a surfing outfit, I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and the fans, you always get this about the ECW arena. Like, obviously you and I have an affinity for that building. The fans go there now, right? And they say, it was great being in the ECW arena. And it's a beautiful venue now. And it still does have vestiges of ECW because that's where we did it. But I don't get the feeling that we're walking into ECW arena.
It's changed, yeah.
Big time, right?
Yeah, it used to be it wasn't how good the place was, what you could do there.
Yeah.
We could do anything there. We had floats in the dressing room from like the Thanksgiving Day parade. And
Yeah.
and that's how Al Snow got his head because there's a couple foam heads in the background and a trash can.
Yeah,
and a
great.
grocery cart.
I remember rats, cockroaches,
yeah,
coming out of the
it was a dirty
bathroom.
place, but that's what ECW. That was hardcore.
Absolutely.
Not fancy arena because that to me the hardcore is you can have a match anywhere in a parking lot.
Right.
Now I don't want to have it in a parking lot.
Right.
I'd rather have it in a dingy garage.
Right.
In a parking lot will do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the magic that was in that building. I know that sounds corny to fans. We had been in thousands of arenas at that stage of our career. I never walked into any building that, as filthy, dirty, and stinky, and cockroachy, and rat infested as it was.
But they took the matches personal.
Yeah.
They got involved.
Right, and
If it wasn't for Hat Guy and Stein Guy,
Yeah. Did it feel like that to you as well? Like I could walk into that building sick with the flu, whatever, miserable. Hear perfect strangers hit and boom,
Yeah,
perfect.
spark up.
Come right back to the dressing room.
I was always tired.
Yeah.
Always. I never slept good at night before a show.
Yeah.
I was always tired, but when I got to the arena, I woke up.
Yeah, clearly, right? It's doing all the stuff that you did. Now, there was something in your style. Like, again, we were all taught to sell as we were younger. I don't recall before seeing you do it, wrestlers selling their moves, right? And it's like one of those such simple things that you look at and go, man, that's brilliant. Right, like somehow we're doing the stuff to other people. Like if I slam you down with a power slam, and I'm taking the bump too. Why didn't that hurt me? Right,
At least your knee or your elbow or something.
Sure. And again, it was those things that were early on. If you remember my promos, it was Webster says wrestling's a sport and it's a shoot. It's a goddamn shoot. Right. And we had to stop saying that because nobody wanted to touch us because they thought it was a human cockfight.
Right.
But me saying that. And then you doing the stuff that you were doing in the ring and selling those bumps and those hellacious moves, it's to me in my brain what wrestling would look like if it were real, right?
Well,
this is what it should
how
be.
I figured that out was I headbutted the guy one time. I go, fuck, that hurt. but it was my move.
Yeah,
It hurt. So when I punch a guy, I'll hurt my hand or elbow on the mat or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's real to me because I do get hurt like that.
Sure.
Little things that people don't see or don't notice, hey, knock your shit out of you sometimes.
Right. I mean, how many times have you been in a fight someplace when you were a kid and come back and your hands broken?
Yeah, your hands broken.
Yeah, you
And then people go, why do you stomp your foot when you punch? I say, because if you hit a guy full steam in the head, you break your hand eventually.
Right. The thing the fighting in the audience, do you recall, because I can't, where that began?
Yes, you see, FMW. When I was in FMW, it was called street fighting. So soon the bell rings, boom, everybody goes outside the ring. You fight around the people, come back in for 1, 2, 3. But everything was outside the ring, and I thought the people were getting ripped off because not everybody could see everything going on.
Right.
But the people loved it, and when they went out of the ring, you could hear the people raise.
Yeah.
And so when I came into ECW, when I got out of that gurney, I started throwing chairs around, and then me and Taz fought outside the ring, and I said, I need a table, and Paulie goes, we'll find one. And I said, all right, then we found like a stack of tables on the back wall, and then I fought over there, fought back with the table, and started using it that way.
Yeah, because again, that to me was what, all of these again are important pieces, but to me that fighting into the audience, there's a picture of me wrestling Anthony.
People think they're getting their money's worth of that.
Yes.
I think they're getting ripped off, but I'll do it.
Yeah, well, they love it, right? But there's a picture, and I don't know, I'm guessing you the same thing. When the fan is this close, you can't do this, right, and pull the punch. So we were laying stuff in out there, not 100%, but 75%, 80%. And there's a picture of me hitting Anthony, in the audience, and there's a fan 12 inches like right here, and he's watching, and you can see the sweat spattering off his head, and you can see his skin recoiling. So you know that I've hit him, right? And to me, that was the stuff that made it the weapons the fans would bring in, and that they knew they had brought in. That it wasn't some prop that switched out back. The steel chairs that we were taking from the audience, the tables that you were bringing in, and that fighting out into the audience right in front of those fans. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. You're sitting at home, the viewer's sitting at home, and they see these fans going crazy as you're kicking somebody's ass right in front of them. And I think it just sucked the viewer in.
Yes.
You know, it was because Charlie was
they participate even though they're watching it on TV.
Right.
They're not even there live.
And we got to give a shout out to Charlie Brzezzi, because he was the handheld guy. Ron and Charlie. Ronnie was up top, right, and in the safe spot at the hard cam. But Charlie Brzezzi was the one who got to bring that handheld, big heavy handheld into the audience and fight around with us. And again, also shout out to Atlas Security and ECW Security.
Oh yeah, those guys were good.
Kept us safe.
They put their lives in front of ours. You know?
Absolutely, yes. When we finally started hitting the bigger times, you know, we had the pay-per-view in the Golden Dome, and the 5,000 plus 3,000 turned away, and that started becoming consistent, right? It was not just
that was a little bit of cheating. You worked that town. You busted your ass for drawing that. But that wasn't all ECW.
No, but it was. It's easy to sell ice to Eskimos if you know how to sell it, right? And if the ice is good ice. This product was a good product. Pittsburgh was a wrestling town, and so
you didn't have the street team. You did it yourself, right? You and a couple other guys.
Yeah, well, we had a good street team, and a lot of family members that worked for.
And that's just
really
one
cheap.
town.
Yeah.
We needed that in every town.
Right. So if you remember the same thing in Pittsburgh, we would do Ross Draper or Cleveland on a Friday night, the Golden Dome on a Saturday night, and occasionally maybe Johnstown or something on a Sunday. Yeah, and just throw some more in there.
I keep thinking Butler. I keep saying this.
We did hit Butler and Indiana a couple times for ECW, but in getting to the point where again we're selling out these huge buildings, and fans are really talking about us, and the magazines around the world are getting us over. And then, early on, but certainly more towards the end, we start hearing this ubiquitous ECW chant when they saw something they liked.
That was the first time I've ever seen, even in a rock concert, everybody chanted the same thing.
Yeah.
Especially in wrestling. No one said WCW, WC. No, they still don't say that.
Right.
But in the WWE, they chant ECW. Whenever they see a spot outside the ring or a stiff spot, they chant ECW. The whole crowd does. Right. So that's like that's a good milestone.
Absolutely. Chris, our manager, told me he likes going to WrestleMania. He watched it since he was a kid. And in Dallas, not this last time, the previous time in Dallas, he got into the car. I was at the hotel, of course, and he got into the car. He said he was disappointed because they were on the scoreboards prompting the fans to chant this or chant that.
Oh yeah, say applause.
Yeah, exactly, right. And as soon as you do that, if you're giving good wrestling, it's my experience that if what they're seeing in the audience in the ring, or on the teleprompter, or on the monitor, that you don't need to prompt them, right?
No,
they'll give you a chance.
No, if you're generally good, you don't need that.
Right. And proud to say that never one time did we ever have to hold a sign with ECW now, right, or whatever. It just sort of happened.
And we never gave out signs. People brought their own.
Yes.
They were creative on their own.
Yeah.
So even when they brought the weapons the first time, we didn't say bring the weapons. They brought them.
Yeah. Well, there was that dollar store right next
door.
They
got the frying pans and shit.
Frying pans and cookie sheets. And in Pittsburgh, it wasn't the pay-per-view. I think it was either the show before or two shows prior to the pay-per-view. We were having, I think it was the Pit Bulls, maybe versus the Dudleys, I believe it was, and my promo on the radio was, clean out the cellar, bring whatever you have, right? And we had dumpsters outside, and they literally brought anything, including a car door that was made it in. Yeah, it made it inside, and I had I just put a new door on my house, and I had a great big long single sheet of glass that was for the storm door, not realizing that glass is special glass, and Perry took it over his head, and he came back with like 1,000 little scratches all over him, like where that glass had gotten him, But again, Ron and Charlie and his team were the ones that would see somebody bringing in, a gun. I can't bring a gun in, knife, and that kind of stuff, right? And kept us safe.
Yeah.
Because the crowd really was crazy.
What got me, someone brought a VCR one time.
Yeah, the VCR. There was some great creative stuff, and it allowed us to have fun with it. Right?
Yeah, you can work a VCR.
Yeah, absolutely. VCR draws big.
Well, see, my uncle taught me also, you don't grab a weapon that you can't work.
Yeah.
You know, you see a hammer there, you see a chair, grab the chair.
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
you kill him with the hammer.
Yeah, amen. It's again the wisdom that we pulled down. Like Dominic was not an educated person, right? Very intelligent person, but not an educated person. I'm guessing the Sheik wasn't either.
No, he didn't go to school much.
And somehow they gravitated into this industry and become humongous stars in the industry. Soak up all these. You talked earlier about how learning stuff, the wisdom you gain with age, right? My mom used to say you don't get to be 50 without living it. And here we are learning. In your case, Sheik. My case, Dominic Tanucci. Guys that had run the roads, thousands and thousands and thousands.
Before cable TV, before
Yes.
airplanes.
Yeah, it's and to have gotten a chance to sit under that learning tree and soak up that experience from them, them plugging it into us.
The only thing is that it kind of disappointing that we can't pass that on. They're learning their own way on the internet.
Right. Was there ever a time that the Sheik told you he was disappointed in you about something?
No.
That Dominic early
He
on.
didn't applaud me for much, but he never said, "Oh, you're terrible. Give up." He never did that.
Oh no. Like I mean, like at an angle, like you laid down when you shouldn't have, or
Yeah, he'd say I sold too much. When he said I sold too much, I knew I was doing good.
yeah. Dominic at first with Bruno, when he was with Bruno, because he and Bruno were like two the same person almost. Bruno never could get the ECW. Right? He never quite understood. He saw that we were working hard and all that, but he didn't like the fighting out in the. Again, I get the difference in the two philosophies, right? The two generations. But Dominic at first was with Bruno, right? Yeah, but why do you do that and why do you do this? And then his neighbors, Dominic was like in a farm area. His neighbors would come over and see him all the time, and they would say, "Hey, did you see your one student this new company called like ECW or something?" And that's when then Dominic started seeing the greater. And if you remember, he came to the show down in when we did the show in Pittsburgh, one of the shows at the convention center downtown. Dominic came. I wrestled Masato Tanaka that night, and he came to me before we went out, and he said, "You got to save the show." And now I'm stressed. Now I didn't normally get stressed. Now I'm stressed. My trainer's here watching, and we went out and Tanaka, damn good hand, and he came back and he. That's
I helped break in.
Yeah, right. Isn't that right? So that was the point. I think Dominic started realizing what we were trying to do. Even if he didn't get it completely, he could see the excitement in the fans. He could see the houses growing, and then his neighbors coming over. I think was the big part to sell him.
And people were tired of bullshit wrestling.
Yeah.
Although we were giving them bullshit, it was better bullshit.
Well, exactly. I mean, wrestling's work, right? So the fans all know this already. But to me, this is where wrestling that I grew up watching sat. Vince McMahon had taken it all the way to the wall over there to cartoon land.
Yes.
Right? Gobbledygooker and all this kind of bullshit.
He made it a real business, which I admire that a little
Yes.
bit. He also killed the business in a way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Killed it for the wrestlers. Tens of thousands used to be employed in wrestling. Now, a couple hundred with Vince. But my thinking was we couldn't bring it back from there back to here. We had to bring it here and then get it way over here.
Yeah.
To really, so like when Rick Rude would cut the music, the franchise would cut the fucking music. Everything was just a bit ramped up.
A little better.
And
a little heavier.
Yes, a little heavier. And at some point, like if you remember, this is the same. '93 was the same year UFC started, right? So they both start climbing ECW. I saw wrestling going in that direction. Like going more towards the reality and more towards, because that's pretty much what we were doing on ECW, right? The laying of stuff in, and the hits were coming a lot harder than they would in, say, WWF.
Yeah.
And
ECW was the first place I worked, besides Japan, where it's okay you hurt your opponent. You didn't get in trouble for it.
But did anybody in ECW ever say to you, "Hey, Sabu, that was a little too stiff"?
Not really.
Yeah, I mean,
Tracy Smothers said it to Bells Mahoney once.
Yeah.
Because you knock me out, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, it's rare. And there were times. I mean, it wasn't like you could go out there and just hit someone in the car and not take heat for it. But Balls, by the way, hit me with a chair one time. The spot was he's going to hit Francine, who's down. So I cover her up and take the shot on my back, right? And we get up and we're walking out, and Franny goes like this. And she says, "You're bleeding." And she holds her hand. He hit me flat, right? It hit me hard, though. I get into the dressing room, I look back. I wasn't cut anywhere. I had a 10,000 red spots on my back. He drew blood through my pores.
Like a blister.
Yeah, I went to. I said, "Dude, I'll have to shoot you the next time." But I don't ever recall that anybody complaining.
Did you go say, "Hey, Paul, that fun guy"? You know, he said,
No.
"Hey, he's up or let it go."
Yeah, yeah. Well, my dealing with Paul, because I don't know why he did this. I'm guessing that he figured, well, I had more years in the business, so he didn't need to talk to me, right? So like I would go to say, Paul, what do you want tonight? I got to talk to this person. I got to talk to this person, and they get closer and closer to the match. I need to be able to put it in my head and turn it around and like really digest it to be able to make it make sense in my head. And I just got to the point where I said, don't worry, I got it. You know, just tell me up or down. And beyond that, he would maybe give me make sure you hit a lot of falsies or something like that. If you're doing a promo, don't forget to
One
mention.
time he did say, he said, do something amazing. I go, I got it.
I got it. Yeah, we'll handle that. But yeah, for all the young wrestlers out there, like when you hear guys like Sabu or me criticizing the business, understand we're not criticizing them.
It's not bitter. It's just I wish to continue on the path we're going. Now it's taking another path to where the guys are having shorter careers, bigger bumps, and more money, of course, but they're shorter careers.
Yeah. Well, I just recently, so I told you this in the car the other day. I saw a list several months back, maybe within the last year, an injury list from AEW, and there were 24 people I remember on the list, and these were serious injuries: torn ACLs, torn Achilles, busted necks. And I'm looking down some, and I started thinking back, like, okay, from UWF on, do I ever remember there being this many people out? There were, to be fair, there were 1, 2, maybe 3 that were out, but I never saw 24 in any company, and including ECW, right, where we were doing all this crazy shit. But we were doing it safely as you could do it.
Yeah, still taking the risk, but I thought it was safe.
Yeah. There were very few times, if ever, off the top of my head, I'm trying to sit here and think, where I felt like in the ring, like something was patently dangerous. Right? The only, not for me, but when Tommy and Brian Lee had the swinging,
scaffold thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing that. Right? That's a little bit too much up there for me. But the barbed wire is one of the things I want to get into with you and Funk. It often gets jokingly said about the franchise that, well, he was the wrestler because he didn't do all the violent stuff, and I didn't. I mean, I left, that was you guys' forte. But when I saw you guys go out and have this barbed wire match, and you had to be cut out of the barbed wire at the end, that to me was like a whole different level of violence, of believability, right? And how, if there's even an answer to this, when you're going into a barbed wire match like that, are there any precautions that you take to? Because I remember when Funk was cut out, there was a barb like
by his throat,
right by his carotid. That if that would have ripped, brother, he could have bled out pretty quickly. And so, like, what's your mindset going into that kind of a match? How to protect yourself, protect Terry?
Yeah, of course, protect yourself, protect Terry, but business as usual. We're not going to kill each other like we don't kill each other every night. Right. It's going to look like it because that's what our job is, to look like it, not to really do it. And like I said before, if you're really hurting the guy, you're doing it wrong.
Right, but understood and agreed, but that barbed wire is not going to do everything you want it to do.
Right. There's like I cut my armband in it, and I had to tape it up before I bled out. And thank God for Fonzie for that. But that wasn't planned. It wasn't planned to go that far.
Right.
Even though stuck in the barbed wire, that wasn't planned. That happened.
Well, and for the fans that haven't or aren't familiar with this, he had said that we had replaced the ropes with barbed wire. There were no ropes, just barbed wire, and he had Terry in the corner in the turnbuckle, set up his chair and went to do the side leg lariat.
It's called an air Sabu.
Yes. And
I do it when the guy moves, and I'll stick him to the corner.
Yeah.
But I didn't stick him. I fell right off it.
And I remember, like, your arm had 2 huge gouges deep up into it. Fonzie ran back, and somebody threw him a towel, and I threw him tape, and you taped it up. And I thought, my God, you don't want to see anybody get hurt out there like that. But by doing that, taping it up and continuing to go, again, just took ECW from here to here, right? Because now the fans are going, like, I don't see the WWF guys doing that or WCW guys doing that.
I was hoping they'd say they don't pay me enough to do that.
Towards the end now, a million side shoots we can go on this, but towards the end, like, when you had to leave, like, what was the impetus? What was the discussion with Paul? Like, what was? Take me into that process.
My checks weren't very good. Actually, there were none. I mean, there were checks, but they weren't any good.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it for a while. When I realized every check I put into the bank got mailed back home 3 days later,
Yeah.
3 to 7 days later. And after a few months, I had no money in the bank. And Kevin and JJ Dillon were going to make me an offer, and they did. Kevin goes, I go, let me take this back to my hotel room and read it. And Kevin goes, read it, just sign it. It was for $120,000 every 3 months. They were going to do a 3-month contract, $120,000 every 3 months.
Right.
And I wanted to tell my mother before I signed it just to savor it. And
Right.
when I called home, my dogs were going crazy and somebody was at the door and my mom had a heart attack before I could tell her. You know, she didn't die from the news.
Oh,
She died
yeah.
because the dogs and
Right.
people were going crazy at the house. And so I said, fuck it. I went straight home and went to the hospital. There's nothing I could do. So I called Paul. I called Kevin and he goes, I got the contract. I'm going to fax it over right now. I signed it. He goes, too late. We're already being sued. A matter of 6 hours. And who I think did it was, I seen Terry Taylor in the lobby there. And we made eye contact and we didn't say nothing. And then 6 hours later, I'm getting sued.
Wow. Incredible. And again, you know,
Then I go to WCW to Kevin. I said, don't worry about it. When I get Paul in the court, they're going to see this contract. He breached it like 7 to 8 times out of 12 conditions in it, like eight breaches. At least one of them will get me the contract thrown out.
Yeah.
But then I said that to Paul, and Paul goes, you'll never get me in court.
yeah. And see that's the foible of the legal system. There should be a linchpin way to get in there much quicker. For things
An
like
honest way. I mean, because he has more money than me doesn't make his defense better.
Right.
You know, he's still in the wrong.
Absolutely, but the
you
world
can
we're living
date
in
by
right
words,
now,
I can't.
without getting into politics, right, is if I'm a billionaire and you're not,
The sky's the limit for you.
yeah, we can go. We can do this for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
You can't, right? So I guess the wealthier you have, sort of more rights. You're like a supra citizen because you have more rights because of your money, which I don't think most people agree with. But when did it become apparent to you, aside from the checks, that ECW was had peaked and was on its downward? For me, it was when I started seeing Paul regurgitate ideas. Right, characters and ideas. I remember when Rhino came in, and not that Rhino was in any way a character like Taz, but he resembled Taz,
Yes,
right?
right.
The size and the way they wrestled and things. And then I see Simon Diamond coming in, you know, doing the sort of big word promos and things like me. And then the angles were very similar to things I had seen before, and that was where I thought he's running out of ideas. His creativity has hit rock bottom. Were you aware of that?
No, I mostly just paid attention to my own thing. If it didn't concern me, I didn't really pay that much attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, I was hoping it was going in the right direction, but I started to, yeah, I could see it changing. He had too many hardcore matches in the one night.
Yeah.
Too many fighting outside the ring. I remember seeing the first match. It was, I think, the Gangsters versus Public Enemy. They went all over the building in the very first match.
Yes.
Not even a warm-up match.
Right. Well, that was another problem too. That in my head I have like about the second, third, towards the end of the second, into the third year, where suddenly everyone was breaking a table, everyone was using the chairs, everyone was MFing on the microphone, everyone was gigging. Right. So it just became match one was sort of like two, like sort of like 3 and 4. And I went to Paul and said, "You got to. I can't do it. None of us can. You have to stand up and take a stand on this and stop this." Where we come from in the business, you don't touch that mic if you're not told. Get on the mic
Exactly.
and say
No one
this.
else uses the foreign object. It's sheets on the shoulder.
Correct.
No
Nobody
one
gets
else. Right.
correct, right? Unless you've been specifically told. And it took me a long time fighting and arguing with him, and we finally had a show in Scranton, I believe it was, at the CYO there. And Paul had a team meeting and said, "Unless you're told this, unless you're told that, don't do it, don't do it." And the reason was I was wrestling Raven that night in some kind of a gimmick match. And he did it, and towards the end, when we finally went to the gimmick, it exploded. But we teased it and teased it and teased it, and finally gave it to them, and exploded. And I went back to Paul and said, "Do you see, this is ECW had become like a Frankenstein of itself.
Yeah.
Like every
Yeah.
match was blood, every match was a table, every match was a chair. And then if you recall the time, when you beat the shit out of somebody in the chair, and you get a from the audience, right? And I'm thinking, we can't go much further on this, right? We're gonna start getting people killed if we do. And but yeah, I mean, we could go on and on all day about this. I know we're getting close to time for this. For the viewers out there, and for myself, because we hadn't spoken about this yet, other than the car the other night, my deepest sympathies on Melissa. the fans out there, I know echo the same thing. I was aware, and if you don't want to talk about it, I totally understand. I was aware when she had the leg amputated. What happened with that? I mean, because she was such a healthy person.
She was very healthy, or we thought she was. She had we went to the hospital 3 months ago, or 3 months before she had her leg amputated, and she thought she had a pulled Achilles tendon, and they even said you probably have a pulled Achilles tendon. So they sent her home, but it kept getting worse and worse. She goes, "There's something wrong with my leg," and I kind of thought she was overreacting. But then I said, "If your leg ain't better by the morning, I'm taking you to the hospital." So what leg wasn't better by the morning; it was worse. We took her to the hospital. 3 days later, they amputated it. Said she had her arteries were clogged in her leg, and that she had a disease killing her leg, and that it was spreading. So they amputated her leg, and I think when they amputated her leg, they didn't catch all the blood clots or something. One got to her heart because they said her heart had a bad valve, and the valve gave or something like that.
Jeez.
And she had an EKG 4 days before that. Everything was fine, but then when she had the autopsy, her arteries were clogged as hell. The doctor said.
Good Lord.
And for years she would say, "I think I'm having a heart attack," and I go, "Is your arm numb?" And she goes, "No," and I go, "Well, then you're not having a heart attack." Kind of blew it off because she would say it every now and then, and then she had a heart attack.
Well, but again, outwardly appearing looks healthy as an ox, right? I mean, she's great shape. You wouldn't jump to something that far, right?
No, I figured because we were so active that her heart and my heart would be the last thing to go.
Yeah.
Because we're so active.
Yeah.
We walk to the gym every day, a mile there, a mile back. That's our cardio, so we don't have to do it at the gym.
Right.
And so, I just thought the heart would be the last thing to go. And like I said, she had an EKG 4 days before that.
Yeah. My mother used to say,
EKG means nothing.
Yeah, tomorrow means it's promised to none of us, right? Like any of us can go.
And I thought for sure I would die before her. I thought for sure.
Yeah. Well, obviously the fans out there are thrilled. We're all thrilled that you're still here. We in ECW, along with, and again, I'll tap dance into this, and if you don't want to talk about it, fine. But what the fans weren't understanding was that by doing this hard impact, high impact, hardcore style, that even though we were doing it on the weekends and not every day of the week like we would in the other territories, that there's sooner or later, I don't care who you are, sooner or later you're going to need something to dull that down a bit, right? And when we got to that point, that was where I started thinking, this. I remember walking in the dressing room and seeing all this drug paraphernalia stuff going on, and thinking this isn't good, any more than I liked Sandman drinking before he went to the ring.
Yeah, but Paul was a little too loose with it, but he figures whatever could get you to the dance, keep doing it.
Right, and in true promoter style. But I am happy to hear that the industry appears to have learned from our lesson, right, from our generation's lesson, the genocide that it was our business, inflicted on our generation in wrestling.
We voluntarily took concussions.
Yeah.
We let guys cream us with chairs.
Right.
And when we knew this is gonna hurt.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, it was. Again, there's a fine line there someplace, and we often talk about ECW in laudatory tones, right? That it was a great promotion. The fans still chanted, which makes our chest beam out because it stuck. But we were really starting to blur the line between the safety factor, right?
Yeah.
There's only so many elements we can keep under control, and once we start to go beyond that, even with the best intentions, sooner or later, I'm really happy that nobody had ever died in the ring at ECW.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that, happen around the world. And
you remember the one time the guy who looked like Abdul the Butcher did a leg drop from the top rope and broke his leg?
I was in the ring. I was in the ring. I had Anthony. The whole angle was I was wrestling Anthony, and Franny had done something to distract him. I got his chain, knocked him out with his chain, wrapped it around. Anthony his veins and arteries were reversed. So you and I push our blood to our face. Our face turns red. His would turn blue because he was pushing unoxygenated blood back into his face.
That's normal?
It's abnormal. It's not life-threatening, but it's abnormal. So when you put him in the full Nelson, he'd turn his face blue, which would sell the whole angle, right? It's perfect. Sandman was supposed to come out and hit me off of him, to break it up. And somehow the NWO was involved, the Blue World Order was involved. They were in the ring, and then this kid was making his debut from the school, right? Good kid.
The kid looked like Abdul the Butcher.
Yes, yeah, pointed boots and everything. Now Anthony's 280, right? So I'm in the full Nelson, facing the hard cam, waiting for Sandman. Sandman comes in and walks right past me, never hits me, and he starts hitting the kid that had broken his leg, right? Because the kid,
After he broke the leg?
yeah, because the kid was going to come out and do the Abbey elbow off the top rope, right? Never being in front of a crowd and the lights and everything. He got confused and hesitated for a second and then tried to go. And when he came back, like, I didn't see it, but I heard it. It sounded like a baseball bat snapping. And then this ungodly oh my, this scream, you know. Sam went and started caning him. And
The broken guy, broken leg.
yeah. So and then
He
he
won't
goes,
cane a retard.
yeah, right. Then he came
Let's
back
cut that out.
and he came back and hit me in the neck like a baseball bat twice, and my arms went limp.
Oh shit.
And he went to hit me again, and I thought I gotta get the hell out of here. I'm hurt, and I rolled out under the apron, and I was telling my arms to reach up and grab the rope and get out, and my arms wouldn't move. And this is like 3 weeks after Gary had broken his neck. And I'm laying there thinking, like, son of a bitch, my neck is broken, right? I'm at the hospital, and they're all working on him because his leg was so badly broken. But yeah, I was in the ring for that night. And again, the stuff, you know, like, it should have been incumbent, like the thing with mass transit, even though I heard mass transit lie to Paul.
Said he was 18.
Said he was 18, said he'd been trained for two and a half years from
really?
Killer Kowalski. And, you know, so.
Was that at work? Did he train with Kowalski?
No, not that I understand. Anyway, you know, there were these times. I want to wrap up with this and try to take it more of an upbeat note because we hear this ECW chant so often, and again, couldn't be prouder when I hear it.
I heard it when I was in TNA. I heard it when I was in WWE.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same here. And now, for the fans that weren't there and weren't part of it to be able to watch it en masse week to week and these events taking place, the fans today have it that every match was a 5-star match. We were all 10 feet tall and never missed a spot, right? And there were plenty of those nights. More nights that we hit the Grand Slam. But there were those nights when we would shit the bed and you'd think, I think to myself, like, ooh, we can't do this much, you know.
Remember that time you were there? I don't know if you see my match with me and Van Dam versus Dudley's. I fell down trying to get to the top rope like 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
Oh my god! And I wasn't that fucked up. The rope kept rolling. I kept falling over.
One of the, I hate
when things go bad, it goes bad. Sometimes.
It goes way bad. Yes, yeah.
You see the thing with Steve Austin and Vince?
No,
he
I
gave
heard
the stunner. Oh my god!
My son told me.
How can he still take that wrong?
Yeah, I was going to say how many times has Vince taken that, right? 100,000. Look, we'll definitely have you back because there's so many other things I want to talk about, but I know we're getting close on time and the other things go on here. Again, Appalachian Expose, we appreciate you tuning in every time. My pleasure to have had Sabu here, the man that made ECW. Love you all. See you next time.